I work for Aditya Birla Group. We are an old company, but we also realize that for us to become bigger and larger, we need all of these startups to play a role. So we as a data science team engage with several startups who come and plug in, help us improve our logistics processes, help us improve our customer experience, help us improve our energy programs. So we see all these startups and these venture studios are bringing startups together as a very, very critical element of our ecosystem partnership strategy, without which I don't think we can realize our ambition faster. So imagine that, if I came to Mirai Ventures and told them that here is what our Raja group is, this is what our group wants to do, here are the places where we need help in developing something. Now, if there's nothing, we will do all of this on our own. But if we get something, we would love to have it. So that way, I think Mirai Ventures can help us bring people who are already in, or if they see a gap in our strategy, they can maybe encourage other people to fill those gaps. So that way, a good collaboration can happen.
I think it's very interesting that you have a concept like this, because one of the challenges that we have as enterprise customers of GenAI is that we want to make sure that the data that we provide or the IP that we provide is in a controlled environment. And typically what I've seen is when we work with third-party providers, you don't quite have that control on the IP. And so sometimes, especially multinational companies such as us in the financial space, you tend to be very skeptical of how much data goes out, how that data gets transmitted out and things of that nature. So I believe that with Mirai, you have controlling stakes in some of these ventures. So that makes it a lot more easier for us from a safeguarding of their IP standpoint. So I think you certainly bring in a very, very interesting value prop to multinationals. So the biggest advantage that I see is the fact that a lot of the POC, the initial heavy lifting that needs to be done in terms of identifying the right partner to work with can be done by Mirai. So that's big for us, because otherwise we spend a lot of time trying to figure that out. And so having Mirai in the middle basically helps with that.
Yeah, so we are with the Dallas Venture Capital, right? So we invest in B2B enterprise software companies. And our focus is AI, and we already have invested in more than 35 companies between US, India, and our India fund has invested in more than 7 companies. So we typically look for companies which are already at Series A stage with $500,000 to $1 million recurring revenue, solving real problems and having big logos as customers. So what we see is Mirai is going to be very helpful for us from a pipeline perspective for our own opportunities that we'll be looking for. And we look forward to partnering with Mirai in that sense. And if Mirai can identify right problems and incubate them and bring them to a PMF stage with the good customers, we would definitely like to partner with those companies.
If you look at the whole venture studio model and why it has gained prominence is, if you look at regular startups. So how does a regular startup happen? Couple of founders get together, they see an opportunity in the market, they create a solution, and then they go out and try and sell it. But as we all know, then there are some reasons which are one of the prominent reasons why startups fail. And one of them is startups create a product or service, but they don't get the perfect market fit. That's one challenge. Then the other challenge is that the startup may be working well, but the founders are not able to go and raise further investment. And that because of that, they die. And the third major reason is co-founder conflict, which is like founders kind of can't work with each other, maybe because they are doing it first time and all that. If you look at the venture studio model, all these challenges are gone, because venture studio model looks at a problem, like especially Mirai Ventures, if you look at, they work with large corporates. They look at certain specific challenges in the industry, in certain domain. So they look at the opportunity, they validate it with customers, and only then they say, okay, now let's set up a venture. So that validation part, product market fit is taken care of. Number 2, in the venture studio model, they come in more like a co-founder, and these are like really senior guys. So this whole challenge of, founders not able to work together very well and all that is also eliminated. And the third thing is that in a venture studio model, all the founders need to do is focus on what they are executing and what milestones, because they don't need to go out in the market to raise funds. And that saves a lot of money. Well, I've been a founder myself. If in the year that you are raising a major round, almost half of the time of one founder goes into just raising investment. Now, in a venture studio model, they don't need to bother about that. They can just focus on that and execute. So you already have investment in place, you have customers in place, and you have very seasoned co-founders working with you to make sure nothing goes wrong. And in this kind of environment, the success rate of the venture really shoots up. That's the beauty of Mirai Venture.
Well, I think it's emerging quickly. I think there's more than 700 plus startups now, and I think I think there's a growing consciousness that this is one bus we shouldn't miss. So I think both policymakers, industry, academia, and of course startup founders are working feverishly to build out ecosystem. We have the ingredients available. We have good talented workforce. Then obviously with the growing number of GCCs around, and they're now becoming centers of innovation. So a lot of global level use cases are being worked on. So I think the way forward is bright, and I think there'll be a lot of opportunities for real disruption to come out of India. From what Mirai can do, Mirai I think is focused on going to be setting up a venture studio. I think historically worldwide, it has been proven that venture studio models work far more effectively than, let's say, incubation-led models. But while that is true, in India we are now, while incubation has been around for a length of time, venture studio models are still, very early stages, very few venture studio models. So I want to compliment the founders of Mirai for taking this big step forward and creating a venture studio exclusively focused on AI. I think could be potentially very, very transformational, very disruptive, and I want to wish them all the best. So I think the model they're looking at, right, where Mirai will go, and Mirai has access to corporates thanks to the work which has been done by 3i. So obviously Mirai has access to corporates and consequently to use cases. So essentially what they can do when they're building out the venture studio is to be able to actually put in front live use cases, right, which can be solved, right, and which are, the use cases have been validated. There is a genuine use case. There's possibly some funding available, etc., etc. So I think the opportunity to have a set of very smart founders, right, ex-founders. What I understand about Mirai is that typically the constitution of the founder mix will be, most of them will be second-time founders or sometimes even third-time founders. So you'll have a really set of seasoned, smart people working on real life, real challenges, which are already validated. So I think they'll do well.
So if we take AI and if you look at what's happening right now, it's not as if that people are not aware of it. The whole conversation which has been happening at the event also today has been that, okay, look, what are you looking to solve? What is the business case? What is the problem to be solved, right? So there's this element of discovery, right? Number one. Number two is when you talk about AI, you talk about data, right? And getting access to right quality data becomes very, very important. Then number three is the element of ethics. And then four is the element of distribution. The final and the most critical one is talent, the right people, right? Now, if you are an AI engineer today, you are not in dearth of opportunities. If you have a business acumen, also you would want to found or start something of their own, right? I think it's a very good tool in the repository of a corporate to look at, to be able to figure out that way, is there a way for me to tap into the talent pool by giving them problem statements, not giving them jobs, not even talking about careers, but talking about, being wealth builders, so to say, right? And in that construct of saying that, okay, look, let me allow somebody to solve my problem, not necessarily in the traditional structure of being an employee in the company, and look outside. I think it's a great tool to have, and it's not easy, of course. So in that sense, having a third-party partner who has some experience in this and who can handhold you, both the corporate and the person building the startup, allow each one of them to stay true to their objectives, to their purpose, true to their capabilities. I think it helps a lot.
Personally, gone through the startup founder journey, and it's one of the hardest thing to do. So having someone who can help you not just with capital, but also people and all the other connections and network that you need is a great thing. I think another great thing which Mirai is doing on the GTM side, because a lot of founding teams especially, they are very product driven, innovation driven, but they do not have the experience of going to the market, which channels to capture first, what to prioritize. So again, I think it's very nice.
I had good fortune to interact with Mr. Uday, and the kind of ecosystem he's creating at the Incubate Hub and Mirai Ventures is something which is very much needed for startup founders with technical background like us, because he has the right connects and he has the right support and right kind of compassion to understand the founder's journey and support in that and plug in where there is a gap in skills like go-to-market strategy, like opening the right doors for the product and identifying the potential of the product, potential of the market, trying to see the better fitment of the product and matching the product and market is something, along with his pleasing personality and supportive nature for the startup founders, I think it's a very good and fortunate thing to have.
Congratulations, Mirai. You certainly are a very unique solution to enterprise customers. I wish you the very best. And again, as I mentioned earlier, these are opportunities that are not available necessarily for many of the third-party providers because of the IP that is there. Mirai certainly brings in that relationship between the two. So all the very best. I do think that you will fill up a unique space in this industry.